Hello and happy Halloween! Welcome back to the John Bonjour Halloween Horror Club. I'm John Bonjour, this is the Halloween Horror Club. And today we're discussing a film that I've seen multiple times and never fully grasped onto until this year, Pumpkinhead. Back from the bar, this is a muddy looking drink and it smells kind of gross and it's settling at the bottom in a weird way. For Pumpkinhead, I have been thinking a lot about what I wanted to do, not only because I wasn't sure how to kind of approach the hometown, farm town vibes of this movie, but also because this is the last of the films that we're doing for the Halloween Horror Club. This is ostensibly the Halloween drink of the year. I wanted to give it some thought and think about how I wanted to approach this, what I wanted to do, and I've decided to potentially make crime. Done. I'm gonna do some crime, potentially. And it smells kind of gross. And we have some pumpkin spice flavoring in the cabinet. And it's settling at the bottom in a weird way. I'm going to be attempting the pumpkin martini. And I don't know if this is gonna go well. I don't think I ever want to taste that again. Pumpkin puree, which feels like a mistake, and I can already sort of taste and smell that. But two, my can opener didn't work, potentially, warning from God. But instead, I decided to take some scissors to the top of the can, so you'll notice it's a little spooky. It's a little spooky in there. And I don't see why we shouldn't just keep on keeping on with this. I forgot my jigger again. So I can't find my jigger. I will be fully freehanding these. I think it's gonna go good. I don't think I ever want to taste that again. This guy, our allspice vodka. I'm gonna do just a little bit of that because it's a strong flavor and I don't want it to overtake. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that. We can always add some later. You can never take some out. Amaretto, little almond liqueur. This is gonna add our sweetness. This is gonna add a nice, got really deep in the paint. It's gonna add a nice earthy, heavy, darker tone that I think is gonna help a lot. So I'm gonna add some of that. Sure. Then we're just gonna fill in with a little bit of regular vodka to kind of sort of even everything out. Dilute a little. Not every day you dilute with vodka. It's like the normal amount of alcohol to drink. Our flavor of choice. Pumpkin. Spoon. It's got a very pumpkin-y color and texture. I honestly thought that was going to be grosser looking, so that's exciting. I'm going to give it a shot. Squashy. All right, two things I think it's going to need. Put that back in there. A little more amaretto, because it's not sweet enough. It is missing a bit of, like, spice. It's missing a bit of spice. So I've got some cinnamon. I'm just going to toss a little bit of that. Now, the cinnamon is congealing in a way that I don't like. It's not bad. It's missing pumpkin pie spice. I hate that that's true. Could be a little gritty. I'm worried about that. Maybe there's a wet version of pumpkin pie spice that we should have got. Also. I'm not sure I succeeded in this one, if I'm being honest. I'm not sure that this was a win. Let's give it another shot. I don't think I ever want to taste that again. I'm gonna put that as far away from me as I can so I don't have to smell the squashiness. Pumpkinhead was released in 1988, directed by Stan Winston, and based on, somehow, and I can't believe I'm saying this, a poem by Ed Justin. If you haven't read the poem, I highly recommend it. Just Google Pumpkinhead Ed Justin, and it's extremely good. Like, it's a really fun, creepy poem to read, and I think there's, later on in the movie, we haven't even started, but in the movie, there's a scene where these kids are, like, walking around another kid. It's the classic, like, childhood bully expositional scene where they're like, Halloween has one too, where they're like, boogeyman's gonna get you, boogeyman, the boogeyman, and they do that, but they just are walking around this kid going, Pumpkinhead, Pumpkinhead's gonna get you. It's a fine scene. It's like, it's a classic of the genre. It's like, sure, I guess you have to kind of express some of that and like set this kind of tonal lore around the town, around the movie, around Pumpkinhead in general. I do think it's a huge missed opportunity to not have them quote the entirety of the poem just walking around this child. I think it would be way funnier and creepier and just better, and also honoring the poem, but that's neither here nor there. We're really getting ahead of ourselves. The movie is helmed by the one and only Lance Henriksen, who plays Ed Harley, and he is just doing a wonderful job. There's a lot of emotional beats he needs to hit. There's a lot of feelings and plot developments that he needs to kind of carry forward with his feelings. And I think, no surprise here, Lance Henriksen is a consummate professional. He is brilliant in this movie. He is genuinely, actively very good at playing the balance between like depression and rage and regret. That core line trinity of emotions throughout the movie, I think, is responsible. It's on his shoulders, and I think he carries the weight extremely well. And before we jump all the way into the movie, I just want to note, this is a movie that I had seen multiple times before everyone had told me that it's a classic, and I just never really latched onto it. I always remember feeling like, yeah, I guess that was kind of cool. There's some good monster bits, whatever. And I couldn't have been, well, I could have been more wrong. I guess I could have not liked the monster bits, but I think I missed the point of this movie. And now, having watched it after several years of kind of break in between, as a more mature adult man and not 14-year-old, I think I really latched onto the emotional side of this movie more than I did the monster side. So the monster was just kind of an added bonus to the movie, and I think it plays a lot better when you're not hoping it's going to be wall-to-wall Pumpkinhead action, because it's not that. And it's also not trying to be that. So that's kind of on me for hoping and assuming that it was going to be something that it wasn't. When I was looking for Feast, this was trying to bring me The Holdovers. And I think that this is better at being an emotional journey for the characters and better at being this kind of fable, essentially, with its own little set of morals than it is at being a monster movie. Although it's also very good at being that, don't get me wrong. But I had just expected that there would be more monster than emotion. And when there wasn't that, I was like totally unsure what to do with the movie. Now that I've seen it again, I am very sure what to do with this movie, and it is to love it with all of every fiber of my being. I see why everyone calls it a classic, a cult classic. I understand that now. Normally, I guess that's part of it too, is you hear cult classic and you assume it's going to be Evil Dead 2. And it's not Evil Dead 2. It's not this wacky, zany movie. I mean, it is in parts, but it's not this over-enunciated, loud, huge, bombastic movie. It really is, truly at its heart, a story about grief and loss, which is crazy to say about a movie called Pumpkinhead. So let's jump into the movie. It opens in the 1950s. There's a small family in a farmhouse, and one of their neighbors is banging down the door, begging to let him in. There's a small child who's like, "Mommy, Daddy, why don't we let this guy in?" And the dad says, "Son, we can't. We just can't." It's a genuinely frightening, just opening moment to start the movie on, because you already don't know what's going on. You're kind of freaked out. You're in the position of the kid of being like, you should probably let this guy in. He seems like he's not doing particularly well. The neighbor is attacked, so he has to leave, and he gets killed by this giant, freaky mutant monster that we will later learn is Pumpkinhead. Just starting off the movie, I want to say I really appreciate, for all of what I said about it not really being about a monster movie, there's a lot of monster in this movie, and it's all extremely, extremely good. It's very practical. It's spooky. There is a tone around Pumpkinhead that kind of develops through the movie that I think is really good, but the design of the monster is very good, and the practical effects are extremely good, and they don't waste any time showing that. I kind of assumed that this first kill was going to be the guy getting pulled into the shadows, blood splurting out, and then cut to title credits or cut to the future or whatever it's going to be. But no, we just see Pumpkinhead. We just see him, and he's just brilliantly lit, brilliantly shot, with this beautiful backlight moonlighting thing that is just extraordinary to look at, and a poster that I would have on my wall. And it's just crazy to me, like, this is kind of the anti-Jaws of monster movies, where Jaws is like, we show nothing for so long that when we finally show it, it's scary, and Pumpkinhead is like, we show all of it for so long that when we keep showing it and developing it, it gets even scarier. Those are two very different schools of thought on how to kind of go about a monster movie. This feels a lot more like the 50s, 60s, 70s B horror monster movie kind of things. This feels like, I mean, it feels a little bit like Creature from the Black Lagoon, where you're like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, he's a creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, we called it that, we're going to show that, he's going to be in the movie. That's what Pumpkinhead kind of feels like, because you're like, oh, what's Pumpkinhead? And the movie's like, this freak. It's cool that the movie is so open with its everything that it's doing. I appreciate that there is absolutely subtext, but it's not trying to be, I don't know, in this world of elevated horror, it's not trying to be something that feels like it's about something else until it gets to the monster bits. It really is like, it's about something else. It has an emotional journey, and also it is gonna do the monster movie stuff. I kind of feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth right now because I'm saying that it's not really a monster movie, it's an emotional journey, and it's not really an emotional journey, it's a monster movie. I guess what I'm landing on is just that Pumpkinhead has an incredible balance of both of those things, to the point that both feel like they're taking the strong hand on the wheel, and it kind of is, I guess the car's just going straight because we're not turning left or right, it's just doing a really good job of veering to one side and then the other whenever the story needs it to. The general story of the movie is that Ed Harley and Billy Harley, his son, played by Matthew Hurley, I always get those confused because of the Hurley thing. Matthew Hurley plays Billy Harley, and he does an incredible job, by the way, because kid performances are always kind of a toss-up. It's a 50-50 shot. This is one that absolutely pays off. He is dramatic and emotional, and I think works really well in what he has to do. Anyway, Ed and Billy run this small grocery store in Podunk, wherever, we're not entirely, well, I'm sure it says, but I don't remember where this takes place. A group of teens on their way to somewhere else decide to stop at their store for just a quick break. There ends up being an accident and Billy is killed. Ed has to deal with all of his trauma and hurt, and we learn that he was the child from the early part of the movie. He decides that he's gonna bring Billy's dead body to this witch who tells him to go through this whole series of rituals to summon Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead being an unstoppable, bloodthirsty demon of revenge. Ed summons Pumpkinhead, and then throughout the rest of the movie, it's back and forth between essentially a slasher starring Pumpkinhead and Ed realizing that he's made a terrible mistake and trying to figure out how to stop what he's already started. There's some things I want to highlight throughout the movie, some that are really good and a couple that I don't totally love. Most importantly, this is photographed beautifully. I know I say that a lot. I say that a lot of movies are shot beautifully, and I think part of it is just that I'm impressed when any movie looks even kind of good. This is a movie that has back-to-back, probably every scene, at least one frame that is just such a striking image that you could genuinely print it out as a poster on your wall. And it doesn't need to go as hard as it does. There's no reason for it to be as beautifully lit, as perfectly shot as it is, because it's a big dumb monster movie, right? But that's part of what I mean, is that it's not just that. There's this kind of additional gravitas to the movie, and I think that displays itself in these beautiful frames where we have this warm, heavy lighting, sort of foggy, emanating from a fireplace, and then a character will turn from that to the window and you get this cold, harsh moonlight. Or every exterior shot is drenched in this hot, dry, golden sunlight. Like there's these physical feelings that are created by these images, by the lighting, by the way that this is shot. And I think it does such a good job of bringing you into this dusty, hot, dirty world that it lends such a tone to the movie that I think is so important to all of this working. Because if this was, like if you remade this a la Black Christmas and it was a crisp, clean image where everything was lit, pretty studio lighting, pretty natural, normal, like everything feels clinical, it would highlight all of the issues that might be kind of subdued from the beautiful lighting that we have. Like it would force you to focus on exclusively, does this creature design, does the effect of the creature work in broad daylight every time? And does Ed Harley's like emotional arc actually work while you're living through these moments? Like it requires you to lean a little bit harder on the story and the actors and the practical effects of the movie, which I think could be really good. And there's like Lance Henriksen, I think could hold up to that. And I honestly think the Pumpkinhead could probably hold up to that. But there's other actors in this movie, and this is a minor negative, there's other actors in this movie that couldn't hold up to that. But when they're shot with this gorgeous, foggy night look, it doesn't really matter, because you're like, yeah, maybe it doesn't feel 100% genuine, but you're a little bit overtaken by the beauty of the work in front of you. It smooths over the rough edges of the movie in a really cool way. That said, even with those kind of medium performances here and there, the characters are really well set up. Obviously, Ed Harley has his own emotional arc that he's going on, and again, Lance Henriksen really does carry that. But the other half of the movie, the other side of the movie, is these teens, And I think the easy way to make this movie would be to have them all be complete shitheads, total D-bags, and you're just excited to watch all of them get murdered. But that doesn't really make the Ed Harley story, it doesn't make Ed's story make any sense, because if they were all horrible people, he wouldn't feel the remorse of bringing Pumpkinhead on them. So you have to have this dynamic where one of them is bad and the other ones, or a couple of them are bad and the other ones are trying to like figure out, okay, am I loyal to my friend or am I loyal to what I know is the right thing to do, which is to stay here and help or try to admit what we did. Where there's one of the teens, one of the guys who's like already been in an accident, already been in a drunk accident, and here he is again with another drunk accident involving a child, and he's like, I cannot be here for this. This is bad. We need to go. And he's clearly the leader of the group, so they all kind of follow, and there's this tension where some of them want to do the right thing and some of them are just trying to make the selfish choice, and you're balancing that the entire time. Some of them switch sides, some of them kind of decide like, oh, maybe I should have done the right thing. Some like there's these interesting character dynamics happening that and it's not interesting enough for its own movie, and I think it's wise to not really have that be its own movie, but it is more than interesting enough to carry us through their half of the movie while they're also getting picked off by Pumpkinhead. It's the right amount of drama. Where like Dark Harvest had a little bit too much drama and not quite enough monster, this has just the right amount of drama and plenty of monster, just the right amount of monster for this movie. And I think it works really, really well. That said, one of possibly my biggest downside, my biggest like frustration with the movie is that the accident itself, because we are introduced to these teens as they're driving along the highway, and one of them's in a Porsche, one of them's in like a big truck carrying a trailer, and the Porsche kind of goes around the truck, and you can tell that he's like kind of being a dickhead because they're friends, they're all part of the same group, and he like zooms forward. I think there's just this perfect setup where the kid is, I don't know, chasing a ball or chasing his dog who's chasing after a ball, and he gets hit by the Porsche, by the douchebag, on the road, and they have to figure out like what to do before the dad can get out of the store, and then they just like drive away and leave the kid there or something along those lines. You could even have the dad be gone like he is in the movie, and they have to figure out what to do, and they just leave the kid there and run. But instead, they have the teens stop, and I understand that there's part of an emotional arc for one of them where she like stops these kids from bullying this other kid, which is good. Like that is all good. I don't think you could not have that in another section of the movie if you felt like you were really missing that. But the choice to have these teens stop, interact with these people for long enough, and then get off and do some kick-ass BMX stunts, which then leads to a bike accident which kills the kid, it feels like an extra step that was really unnecessary. And I don't know if it's because did they get a guy who really likes doing off-road biking, and he was like, this is part of the movie, this will be part of what I do in this, or I'm not signing on? Or did they, are they trying to show that they're like city kids and don't understand how this is supposed to work? I really don't totally get what the point of that was. And it makes for kind of an awkward pacing of the movie, because you have this incredible killer opening, another second opening where we're introduced to the father and son, and they are adorable together. I think they have great chemistry, if that's like just actor chemistry back to back. I think they work really well. And then there's this weird hard stop where they kind of dick around on some bikes when the teens get there for like what feels like 20 minutes. It's probably like 5 minutes of the movie, but it feels like a hard stop in the movie. Then the accident happens and the movie's back on track to being like good again. And then my other negative is that there's also there seems to be a first to second act hard stop and a second to third act hard stop, where you just kind of lose the pacing and momentum of the movie. And I think it's very frustrating because it's almost perfect, and so it's not that big a deal, because it's like, yeah, you can get over those, but those are hurdles in the movie that I think could be pretty easily removed. You just have slightly less time where the two kids are hanging out with Ed later when they find him and are like kind of holed up with him. You have less time with them, and you have less time where there's sick ass radical BMX stunts. Like I really don't know why that's in the movie. That said, after that, Ed does go to see this witch in the woods, and she's amazing. Like she's just an incredible character. Again, with the way that this movie is shot, she is kind of almost exactly equally shrouded in darkness and lit by this fire, and her house is this cacophony of bones and creepy things. And Ed is showing up to her. She's blind, and he's like, please, I'm begging you to help me. And she just goes, raising people back from the dead is out of my power. Sorry, like there's nothing I can do. And he's like, but I really need this. Like, this is important to me. And she's like, no, there's nothing I can do. And then he brings up Pumpkinhead. And I think it's an interesting thing to note. In this movie, Ed is the only one who ever brings up Pumpkinhead. And he usually has to like press about it before anyone will acknowledge it. There's a scene earlier where he's trying to figure out who to even go to. And he had heard that one of his neighbors knows about this witch lady. And he was trying to like get the information about where she is out of him. And he keeps like, they never say Pumpkinhead, but he keeps being like, I saw him. I know that he exists, and I need her to get to him. And there's this great buildup of who Pumpkinhead is, what Pumpkinhead is, and what the point of this whole movie is that I think works extremely well throughout the film. And the idea of Ed being the only one brave or stupid enough to actually physically talk about Pumpkinhead, I think is a really cool little bit. So he goes to the witch, she tells him what to do. He goes to this grave where a Pumpkinhead may or may not be buried, but like he goes to this big grave with pumpkins growing out of it, and it's another just incredible sequence. It's just so good looking, and the set design is really good because it's this like big mound of grave site, and it's creepy. He ends up digging up, I assume, Pumpkinhead, but we're not 100% sure. He digs up this body, and he kind of comes back, and it's off to the races. Pumpkinhead starts showing up at these kids' places and just tearing them apart. And that part of the movie is extremely fun. When it is a monster movie, I think, again, with my ongoing mantra of movies that I love, is that this could have been so boring, and instead it's so exciting. And so it's just nice to see a movie that really commits to being the thing that it is. And Pumpkinhead himself, the physical aspects of him are obviously really good. The way that he is like physically done on screen, the practical effects are really solid, but also he's a very scary dude. Like he's just a frightening guy because and I don't know how they do this because there are no words spoken by Pumpkinhead, an incredibly good choice, by the way, but he seems to genuinely enjoy what he's doing, which is terrifying because what he's doing is just horrific shit to children, but he's like, he's playing around with them. He's like pushing faces through windows and carrying people up. Like, if it would be less scary if he was just a force of nature tearing through these kids and there was nothing you could do. It's way scarier that he is that, and he instead chooses to just dick around with them for a really long time. Like, there's a playfulness to Pumpkinhead's character that I think is genuinely very, very creepy. Like, he carries one of the girls up a tree and decides to drop her in front of her friends instead of what he could easily do, which is just tear people's heads off. Which brings me to my favorite moment of the movie, by the way. There's a bit where some of the teens are in like a cabin and they're freaking out that one of their friends has been killed, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And one of the kids goes, "Only God can save us now." And then you see Pumpkinhead just walk past their window in this like shadowy darkness, which is already very scary. And another character grabs two butcher's cleavers and goes, "Just in case God doesn't show up." A similar moment kind of to that. There's a bit where he's talking to the witch. Ed is talking to the witch, and he's like freaking out, and he's realizing what he's done. He's asking her if there's anything that he can do to stop this, and she's like, "There's really nothing you can do. What's done is done." And he's just like, God damn you. And she goes, "Oh, he already has." And I think again, just that like invoking God in this kind of like, God sort of washed his hands of this moment. While I don't think it's a particularly Christian way to look at it, I do think that it's a very interesting one, and it's a very fun like energy for this movie to be bringing. Throughout the movie, Ed is having these visions. He's seeing what's happening even if he's not there to all of these teens. He learns by the end of the film that Pumpkinhead is directly connected to him. He learns this by snagging like a wire for the flamethrower that he has and impaling himself a little bit on a pitchfork. Pumpkinhead also gets hurt in the same place. And it's this really interesting moment where Ed realizes that the only thing that he can do to stop Pumpkinhead at this point is to die. So he has to sacrifice himself, which is not like a shocking ending because you kind of expect that from what you're putting the pieces together a lot faster than he is because you're seeing both sides. And I think it's almost feels like an inevitability, but this movie kind of deals in inevitabilities. And I think that's one of my favorite things about it is Pumpkinhead feels inevitable. He will always come back because there will always be wrong. The deaths of all of these people feel inevitable because Pumpkinhead can't be stopped. And Ed sacrificing himself also feels inevitable because he knows that he's made a mistake. He knows that he can't come back from what he's doing. So he has to die in some capacity. He has done something so irreparably bad that he needs to make up for it in some way. And it's this large, like, cosmic rhythm happening throughout this movie that feels like it's been happening for a really long time. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. It's also worth noting that as Pumpkinhead grows more and more, he begins to look more and more like Ed, which is interesting because at the end of the movie, when Pumpkinhead is finally killed, Ed sacrifices himself. Pumpkinhead is finally dead, and he gets buried, I think by the witch. It's by the witch. Pumpkinhead gets buried, or Ed gets buried, and there's this thing where you see Pumpkinhead and you see the little necklace that his son gave him early on tied to Pumpkinhead, and it's like this cool moment where you're like, those two are now inextricably linked. Those two are almost one and the same. And I really like that kind of arc of the movie. I think is really solid and really interesting. And I like that it's not clear if Ed is now Pumpkinhead or if there's some kind of like, if it's symbolic. I like that it's left ambiguous. It's left in this moment where you can read the ending however you kind of want to read the ending. And I think that's very cool. That is kind of my thoughts on Pumpkinhead. I am so glad that I watched it again. I'm glad that I watched it for this because I think I'd watched it enough times, kind of not growing up, between, in my teenage years, that I was like, I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, I don't see why people love this movie. It's kind of boring. And I think at this point, I probably wouldn't have watched it if I wasn't doing these videos, if you guys weren't watching these videos. So I guess thank you for making me watch Pumpkinhead again. I really loved this movie, and I have had such a great time on the second season of the Halloween Horror Club. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I look forward to doing this next year. These videos are so much work, but they are so much fun to do, and I'm so glad that I'm honored to be able to do them. I just appreciate you guys being here. I hope you have a safe and happy Halloween. Let's get ready for Christmas horror movies. Let's dive into some of those coming up. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, anything of the like, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and comment down below which you'd like me to review next, or do none of those things because I am not your dad. A group of teens roll in, there is a group of teens stop while they're